Iluminr, a B2B SaaS startup, is working for transforming uncertainties into readiness and revolutionizing the risk management for the companies. It is also making the world more resilient to stride through this change. Praneeth Gedela, VP of Engineering at Iluminr, is one of the minds behind this technology. He is here with us to share the journey of building this product and building the tech teams in India. Thank you, Praneeth, for sharing this stage with us today. Can you share more about Iluminr and your role in it?
Thanks, Reshma. I'm pleased to be here. Myself, Praneeth, and I work as a VP of Engineering with Iluminr. Been with the business for about, 6 to 7 years from the day zero of the business. Seen through so many cycles of team scaling up and scaling down. Iluminr as a business has gone through ups and downs, but also we're at a point where the business is at a pivotal point in terms of the growth for the next years to come. So the current hiring cycle is very much a step in the direction to meet those requirements and needs.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And what I happen to know about you is back in 2005, you shifted from Hyderabad to Australia. And you're with Iluminr since 7 years, associated with Iluminr in various capacities. Can you share more about your journey there?
Into Iluminr, to up until Iluminr?
Yes. Yes.
Well, as you said, my career started in Hyderabad, and then I also did a brief work in Bangalore for about 6 months. Then got an opportunity to move to Australia. Little as I know that will be the last time I leave India for career, and I settled overseas. So I worked for about 3 to 4 years in Australia in my first stint, and then I moved to Singapore. Lived there for about 7 years, and then I moved back to Australia. I think it's about 8th year coming into. Mm-hmm. So when I moved to Australia, I was very intentional in terms of looking for opportunities or possibilities which are fresh, which are new set of challenges. Because up until then, I was working with, let's say, big banks or investment banks and large-scale service provider companies. So in that search, I came across Iluminr. Back then, it was RiskLogic. Josh was the founder. Josh is also the CEO and the founder for Iluminr. So him and I, we met and we worked together for a couple of years, and that's when the idea of starting up a technology-oriented startup, which is Iluminr, to bring the crisis-related framework into the world has started. Since then, I was working with Josh and the business on that.
Okay, great. I have a very interesting question for you. So today is 21st of November. On 20th of November 2023, that is exactly a year back, what were you doing at 11:30 p.m. at Sydney time?
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
11:30 p.m.
Sure. I don't even remember the day what I was doing, or let alone the time. Am I doing something naughty there? 20th November. Can't recall.
Okay, so you may not remember, but we stalk our clients very well.
Sure.
So you actually came on our website and inquired with us for our services.
Oh, wow.
So that actually makes us curious. What was that hiring problem that you were facing that kind of hampered your sleep on a Monday night?
Oh, wow. Okay, so I guess, I can't recall the exact timelines, but I can recall the nights what I spent in terms of looking out for stuff provided in India. So. Mm-hmm. I think at the time, what we're looking for is we had a dev team coming based out of Bangalore in India. What we were looking for, again, we made an intentional choice to have a better care and control and consideration so that we are setting ourselves up for future success to have our own engineering team. Mm-hmm. And one of the main places, given the past experience of we working with the teams in India, I started looking out and scouting for the Indian marketplace at the time. Reached out to many recruitment partners out there, did my own due diligence around it. I would say Uplers, I think I vaguely recall, the website itself is quite trendy. I think it has a vibe of a startup. Also, I have my own hesitation given that I understand what a startup means and would look like and how it project. So hence, I'm also looking for some sort of trustworthiness and reliability in that sense. So I looked at the customer logos and everything. The pricing is quite transparent. Mm-hmm. So I think there is something which has pulled to at least do a bit of a deep dive. I think that's when I reached out to one of your via the chat, I guess.
You mentioned that you already had the development team during that time, and I'm sure, as you mentioned, that you kind of evaluated various alternatives before making this decision. Can you share more about various alternatives that you explored and the pros and cons of those alternatives? So, for example, the dev team that you had was basically from an offshoring agency, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
What was exactly the pros and the cons of having an offshoring agency versus having the own team, and the various alternatives that you explored through that?
Sure. So to answer to that, perhaps I need to step back and also respond to how we reached out to the offshoring agency themselves, because anytime we always look for someone who is a match in terms of our business interest, and someone who could actually doesn't see just as a client, just see us as just any other client, and to just get the job done and leave. So because from our side, we always extend that, let's say, inclusivity, let's put it that way, so that the other side of the engineering team feels as one.
Feeling of having your own team.
Oh, for sure, yeah. We always strive for that. I think we did, it speaks for itself with the previous offshoring agency, I think dev agency we worked with, the team and the agency we worked for the last 5 years or so. So one of the pros, in my experience, I've seen or observed is it needs, with initial investment or upfront investment around aligning the team and the team culture with the business goals and the future prospects, what we are hoping and expecting for. I think that alignment is pretty useful. That actually reaped us benefits for the years to come, given that the same team stick with us for the next 3 to 4 years, which shows something that they also indeed like working, and they also had the investment. So that worked for us. And the other pro, I would say, mainly I would say is now that I have experience interviewing and hiring for us, for our own staff, it's mainly the delegation of recruitment, hiring, onboarding, managing the staff, everything. I didn't need to take care of anything at all. That's a big pro for me. Startup like us, and for a role like mine, I wear multiple hats, so I had to take care of many responsibilities. So I don't have the luxury to have to take into account all these kind of things. So that's a big pro personally for me, but also it allows me to spend the time into other areas which are more, let's say, impactful to the business and the team.
Right.
That's a big pro. What else the other pros I would say? I'll come back to the pros if anything strikes me. The con, again, I would say the con, I would put it in a way where it needs an additional investment. It needs a thorough revision and reevaluation pretty much every 6 months or every year in terms of the keeping a tab on the motivation levels of the team, to see if they are still invested or not, to see if they're aligned with what we're doing or not. Because one of the observations what I've seen is that as time passed, I've seen that there is a sense of complacency has set in the team. And again, it's something to do with the culture, because the team whom we worked with, and pretty much across the board, the partners and vendors whom we worked with, technical level and on the tactical level, they're all experts. They're all well versed with what they're doing. But I think it comes down to taking ownership, having the drive,
and then the day not being a part of the team.
Yeah, it comes down to that piece. That is correct. Which also means that as much as the Iluminr is taking the initiative, is also the expectation from the other team also. I think that's one main con, which is also one of the key impetus for us to look in a different direction, to go into the market and hire for our own staff.
Yeah. When you say a bit more costly affair, or having less cost advantage there, how much difference do you think it brings on the table in terms of tentative range or percentages in terms of budgeting? How much more does an offshoring kind of setup cost versus if having the time of hiring the team ourselves brings down that cost?
Like how we have done with Uplers.
Possibly, yes.
For sure. So that's quite an evident one. So we did a basic number crunching before we led us into this direction of hiring our own team. I would say in our own number crunching, we have come across for the same team size of 5. So we had a team of 5 and 6 here and there. For the same team size of 5, with our math, per annum, $250,000 so round about 200 to 250,000 AUD is what our savings would look like. So that's one of the other reasons also is going into the Indian market and hire our own staff. Little less I know that not only we are saving the cost on this side, but also at the same time there's a huge the access to the talent itself is a big thing for us. But also a different type of talent who could actually take that initiative, has the drive, is something which we also came across. So there are some
becomes crucial, especially
100%.
in a startup journey.
100%, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. You also mentioned you evaluated various alternatives, kind of explored whatever possibilities there were, including the recruitment agencies, your companies, etc.
Yep.
What made you choose Uplers, or rather I would say, what are the pros and cons that you felt interacting with different alternatives?
Sure. Yes, indeed, I have approached about 8 to 10 easy in different big recruitment agencies. I have sliced and diced across the market actually in terms of going from startups to the big ones, but also in terms of different staffing types, what they offer. Especially with Uplers, I think the one word comes to my mind is more about having being available across the journey. The level of support what we have received and I have received throughout the whole process, at least for the last 6 months, I think, keeping aside the other phases, the level of support and being available throughout the journey is key. So for us as a foreign entity coming from Australia, it's a new here. It's quite nervous, and actually there were times where I was myself doubting my own decision in terms of am I doing right or not. So I was in a lookout for someone who I can trust, someone who I feel assured at the same time, because I need to sell the same narrative and the story back to my leadership also. At the end of the day, it needs to be the business and the leadership for them to feel assured and be confident that, yep, we have someone on our side, and our hiring needs will be met, because those hiring needs will translate to meeting our own business objectives and product initiatives.
Absolutely.
So it has a direct impact on our business. So I'm looking for these aspects as put. That is something which I've certainly did notice, and throughout all the phases and throughout the journey, we're well taken care.
Yeah, that's great to know. Right. And how much time did it take for you to come to a decision after evaluating all these alternatives?
Yes. Yeah, that itself is a journey in its own right. So I think after I reached out to the Uplers team, I was obviously doing parallel validations of 6 to 7 at the same time, having multiple calls across different players in the market. Again, to me, it's hard to put in words, because I tend to pick on subtle things where responsiveness is one thing. Maybe perhaps I'm coming from the startup culture, so I expect immediate responses regardless of the geographic locations. That is something again which I've come across from Uplers team. So immediately I'm reached out in terms of what's the next steps and who's the call will be. I think at the time Sappy and Sammy were part of that. So we were well taken care in the first stages. The other part, I think 6 to 7 players when I reached out, there are a few came back to me. One is, I think 50% of them, for whatever reasons, I think there isn't a compatibility, there isn't a match in terms of what I'm looking for and what the service provider, the partner, is offering. For example, what we're looking for is to hire our staff in a market. But again, we have we have a different aspect, which is we don't have an entity setup, our own entity setup in India. So we had to go a EOR approach, which is employer of record. That isn't something which is the other partner is they don't have that on the table, or else the commission is very much on the higher side. I mean, we can't just afford them at all. Yeah. that's not we're not ready for that. Else the initial talent pool which I asked for reference, they're just the profiles what I've gone through. Again, it's not a match in terms of not only on the technical level, but also at the same time in terms of the experience what we want, which is pretty exclusive asks, let's put it that way. Those are the few things I think allowed me to lean towards Uplers. So it's more of an elimination round I was going through at the time to see. I'm hoping that I would at least land on 2 or 3. Yeah. Actually, I was landed on just Uplers only. I thought that I would at least have 2, given the size of the market and everything. I don't know, perhaps our asks and requirements are exclusive, but which I don't think so. But then, hence I nudge towards Uplers, and I stick with the Uplers team.
So we didn't have the competition, did it?
Not at all. That is true, yeah.
All right.
It's true.
So what do you think helped in this whole journey? Like you mentioned, that understanding the requirement in detail and kind of matching the right talent in terms of that particular position, not only in terms of that skill set, but also understanding broader areas of the role that the position is required to play, which goes beyond the JD many times. Many software aspects are kind of added, which cannot be just gauged from a black and white JD on hand. So what aspects do you think helped Uplers gain that advantage or that leeway in kind of providing what you were looking at?
Yep. So I'll speak from my experience in terms of as an observer, because this is something which I received as information from Uplers. So the way the recruitment approach, the whole of the approach being taken is that, so when I shared the job descriptions and the comments of what we're looking for, it's not just technical. I mean, you would remember, and also the team we had a couple of calls.
I also remember your feedback on some of the profiles where you said, this is vague, this is not clear, I don't like the communication, and it was like difficult. Okay, what exactly do you mean by that?
Yeah, it's 100%. It's hard to put also. I mean, I understand the complexity, and I appreciate the complexity in screening and profiling the candidates now that I'm directly involved in interviewing and also working with you and the team closely. It is technically is one thing, but also we are looking for certain personality traits, certain behavioral aspects, which I think any startup or even any company would hope to have those kind of talent on the team. But also at the same time, it is the interpretation and it is the understanding from the Uplers team is required of what we're looking for. I think that sense of alignment is quite key, which in the first or second call itself, we had that, which is good. It makes my life and job easy because now I can leave it to you to waiting for the right profile.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah, exactly. That is one, and the second one is I think there is a degree of flexibility also from Uplers team where, based on the initial look on the profiles, so I had my own feedback which I shared with the team, and the team actually took into account and accommodated it right away, instantly actually, and then what it means is that the volume of profiles or the kind of profiles what I received were changed based on the feedback, which is good actually. That feedback loop or the feedback cycle helped a lot actually, both on the Uplers team and myself and my team too. Saved a lot of frustration, I would say, for sure.